What's up, Tesla nerds and faithful detailing friends? We're going to do this series a little bit differently than what I'm used to doing, which is to make an hour-long video for each part of the process. Instead, I'm going to break this down. We're going to show you each step of the process, from decontamination through polishing, through coating, and all the finishing steps. And we're going to reference a product and then get you up to speed. I would urge you, I know how many of you Tesla guys think. You're thinking that when you get the car, that it's perfect right from the factory, and it's not. It needs to be, I think, it certainly needs to be corrected and protected. So even a new car needs to be decontaminated and needs to be polished and needs to be coated or waxed. So that's the first, common question I think you're likely to have. The other thing is that don't be cheap. This is the way for you to become a CEO like Elon Musk someday. This is a microcosm here. So if you don't cheap out on weird crap and trying to do weird things like wrap the car or do some other weird bull crap, highly marketed F11 top coat, stuff like that, stay away from it. Just do what I'm telling you to do here. I don't know how many decades into this process, but I'm going to get you there nice and cleanly. And if you have 70 grand or 170 grand to spend on a car like this, stop being cheap. This is how I'm going to get you to that next level. You're going to become the CEO of your company instead of being crapped on for the rest of your life. So I know I'm generalizing here, but I want to get you to the point to where you can do this properly. We're going to teach you how to decontaminate it, then polish it, then protect it. We're going to teach you how to take care of the interior, and then after the series, I'm going to teach you how to wash it. And then at the end of this process, you're going to be wondering where to get all the stuff. We're going to reference all the products. I built an entire website and store to cater to this type of video. So don't be cheap. Pay the shipping in my store, and I'm going to help you get to the promised land of your life. So anyway, let's get started. Let's get rolling on Decon. So let's talk step one, decontaminating the surface with a soap. The magic of this soap is that it's super slick, foams extremely well, works well in the bucket, because what I don't want to do, even though I'm going to polish the car, I don't want to mar the surface more than I have to. I'm going to use the same washing procedure that I normally use, which is to use two buckets. One is the wash bucket, one is the rinse bucket. And we put it in the foam cannon, put 150 milliliters in the foam cannon, rinse the car down first, follow with the soap, and then put, of course, the soap on the sponge and in the bucket, and then wash the car from top down, visiting the soap bucket. You don't want to wash too big of a panel all at once. You'll see me taking the sponge, doing let's say a 4x or a 3x3 section, flipping the sponge over, doing another 3x3 section, revisiting the bucket as often as necessary. You don't want to wipe the whole side of the car down. You don't want to go from bottom up. You want to just use common sense here and try not to grab a bunch of dirt from the dirtiest part of the car and move it up to the top and scratch the surface. I'm not a huge proponent of worrying about dragging the sponge off the grit guard. I just dunk it in the bucket, swish it around, dunk it in the second bucket with the fresh soap, and revisit the paint. Again, use logic here. Think about, you're taking a microfiber pad, and you're wiping on a dirty surface. And I just want to try to dislodge some of that dirt from my sponge, but ultimately there's always dirt on the surface, and so I guess you could use multiple sponges. I've just found that to be a diminishing return when washing. So after we do the decontamination soap step one, I want to rinse that off. I want to make sure before I do any kind of abrasion of the surface, I want to make sure that I get the dirt off the car. Then prepare myself for the stink from the second step, which is an iron removing product. So on step two, this Todd Cooper writer from Esoteric Detailing refers to this as chemical decontamination. So you're going to spray this down with an agent or a product that attacks and breaks down iron. And so what we do is we simply spray the surface down. I'm using a product from Optimum called Tar X. Just know it's going to smell badly. Some people it smells worse than others to them. And so you're going to spray the entire surface down. You can choose, there's a couple of ways I've seen people do this. Grab like a damp microfiber towel and drag it across the surface after this, because it's a white car. I wanted to get good coverage. I took the back end of the sponge that we're going to use for step 3, the auto scrub sponge, and just wipe the surface down just to get even coverage. And then after that, you let it sit for 5, 6, 7 minutes. I would highly suggest you don't do this in the sun. Then rinse the car really well, getting it out of all the cracks and crevices and stuff like that. Iron comes from, I guess it could come from brake pads, can come from railroad tracks, can come from just general, there's iron, apparently there's iron floating around in the air. And what tends to happen, because if you look at the clear coat under a microscope, it tends to be jagged. And so little pieces of iron will embed itself on the surface of the clear coat, and usually those will lodge. Either it'll lodge to the surface and it can dull if you have a lot of iron on the surface. But really what we don't want is we don't want those small particles of iron dislodging in our mechanical decontamination step, because we don't want to be scratching the surface of the paint if we can help. And so that step will be less important in your future depending on where you live. I find that I do it every time I do this process, but I find it not as useful in the future. There's usually been more iron on my car from the factory than I've ever received from where I live here in Central Florida. So after rinsing on our second step, step 3, we're going to do a auto scrub, which many would refer to as it's the same process as using a clay bar, an actual physical piece of clay, and you're going to use some sort of lubricant. I like to use Nanoskin Glide, and we dilute it 7-to-1 in a bottle with just regular water. I don't worry about using distilled water or any sort of deionized water solution. We're going to be rinsing this right off the car anyway, and you can't use too much of it. And so it's cheap, it's diluted, you can soak the surface down. You see me spraying down the sponge, spraying down the pad, and I found that using a lubricant helps to alleviate a lot of the future marring that you're going to get. Many of these companies that make these synthetic clays, again, Nanoskin was the first to come out with this, they'll make a more aggressive version. I don't think that's necessary, and pretty much I've never seen a car that was contaminated enough where I needed something more aggressive. So the fine sponge and the fine pad, you could put the pad on a dual action polisher. I don't think it's necessary. Just do it by hand. It takes less than 10 minutes to do the whole car. Always start on the glass to break in your sponge. Mine are older, but I just have formed a habit to do the glass first. So I did the glass roof, then the glass side glass, did the windshield, and then of course the back section of glass first, and then went to the upper sections of the car and worked my way down. There's no reason to work from top down other than to just keep yourself organized. And again, this isn't a critical step. I know when I first started detailing, I was using a clay bar. I thought the clay bar was the polishing part, and so I would sit there and work every square inch of it. Really not necessary. And so step 3 is the most labor intensive, but you're not leaning into the surface. You're just using the weight of your hand, and because you're using the fine sponge, if you do lean into it, you're not going to damage anything. This part of the process is imperative if you plan on getting a good solid bond from your last step. This whole part, step by step, is important. Because you have me, there's no reason to not do it the right way. Let's do it right from start to finish. And so this decontamination process is not, it's not unique to me. This is a pretty common way to do it. I'm just sharing with you all the little tweaks and tricks that I do. After step 3, we're going to rinse the car as the best rinsing we've done. Notice in this whole process, I haven't done anything with the wheels. I did spray some iron remover on the wheels. These wheels are coming off the car when I do the polishing, so we'll probably, if I was going to keep these wheels, I would coat them and treat them separately. So in this decon process on a Tesla, there's no engine bay to do, and so I've skipped the wheels and I skipped the engine bay because I'm getting an aftermarket set of wheels, and there, of course, is no engine bay to treat or to deal with here, so we don't have any engine bay detailing to do. And so you'll see a future video where I coat the wheels, and I'll show you how to do that with my set of wheels that show up here in probably 6 or 8 weeks. I'm getting a set from Voss, and they're going to be pretty cool. You'll have to wait and see what those look like. So another very important thing, after you finish those 3 steps, do not use any sort of drying aid. We don't want to add anything. We just spent all this time stripping the surface, decontaminating, removing any film or sealants or waxes. Of course, this process will not remove a coating, but it might put a little dent in the stuff that's hung up on it and make it ready to polish off the coating. So notice we didn't use any drying aid. Notice when we used our Ego blower, this was the Ego 650 with a prototype short nozzle. I blew the car off first as much as I could. In the future, when you see us do a wash, the car will dry off 95% when we have it protected. And you want to avoid doing this kind of drying in the future because we're likely inducing some towel marring because the surface is rough. You know, there's no protection on it. It's not very slick. So even though there's no contamination, it's not slick enough to drag a towel across nice and neatly. You could use the drape method where you throw the towel, drape it across, and just touch and drag it. I just dry it like normal because I'm going to fix anything in the polishing phase if I added some stuff. So I use the orange towel for the tight areas, the little orange drying aid towel from my store, and then the big waffle weave. This is the time I use the big waffle weave most often. So that's our process. That's our step-by-step process. Again, I'm beating a drum here, but step 1, decontamination soap. Step 2 is to chemically remove with an iron remover. Step 3 is to use the Auto Nanoskin Auto Scrub, and then you rinse it. If you could add, I guess, step 3A, if there was tar or any sort of sticky residue from taking delivery. I do carry or have a bottle of CarPro Tar X on hand. I didn't have anything that wouldn't come off from just using my finger, and so in this process, you may want to have some sort of adhesive remover as well. I love CarPro Tar X. We have it in the store, so we'll link that as well. But other than that, this 3-step process gets the car prepped. I did drive it from my house to here, so before I start polishing, we'll show you in the polishing video, I will wipe it down again. I drove a mile down the road. So if you're out in your driveway, you're letting the car dry, I prefer to do this step the day before I polish because now all of the water and stuff can dry up in all the jams, and so I'll wait to tape the car the next day. So if you're thinking about doing a car over a weekend, I always used to when I had one car and I needed to get it done and I had a job back in the day, I would do the decon on Friday night. I'd let it dry. Saturday morning, I wake up, wipe the car down, do my polishing all Saturday, finish my polishing on Sunday, and do my coating and finishing the project up on Sunday night is generally how I do it. So that's the first step of the process. Go to obsessedgarage.com. We have a whole package. Just again, don't be cheap. We just price this stuff at whatever retail pricing is. I don't mark it up. I ask you to pay for shipping for hopefully this valuable information. We sell this stuff all the time to people who just want to replicate the process. So if you watch this video, you follow the process, this is a really easy step by step. The polishing is a little more sophisticated, but I promise you we can get you there. Let's do it right. Forget all this bull crap that your dad taught you or your uncle mentioned to you. This is a sort of state-of-the-art way to do this process of decontaminating your new car, old car, doesn't matter. This is what you need to do to get it prepared to polish it. I think you're going to want to get into polishing as well. If this is your first car, your first cool car, I don't know how cool it is, but if this is your first performance car, let's do it right. Let's get you away from doing wraps and spraying some weird graphene bull crap on the surface. Let's do this using a process that's proven. I won't call it the right way, but this is a proven way to do this correctly. I guess correctly and right are the same thing, aren't they? Just listen to me. Trust me. I got you. Never trust anybody that says trust me. So that's the process. Go to obsessedgarage.com. You can see all the decontamination stuff is there. We have it linked in the description. We have it in the cards. We have it at the end of the video. Yeah, stay tuned for episode 2, which will be taping, prepping, and polishing. We're going to correct the paint. And I'll show you how you assess that, how you do that, and what the result looks like. Thanks for watching. And yeah, see you on the next episode.